All righty, welcome back for another episode of Two Plane Sports. Today we are talking all about the spring game. Obviously, as you're seeing this, it's Friday. Tomorrow is the spring game. I feel like we've been waiting for forever for this. After this offseason, it feels like it's been 10 years since we've seen, um, you know, OU football that's not in turmoil. Since late November, it's been a roller coaster. So I'm excited that we can finally turn the page. Late April, before we know it, August is going to be here. But before we get into it, we just want to say we really appreciate it. We just passed 4,000 subscribers. We asked you to get us there before the spring game, but we have an ultimate goal of this year. We're trying to hit 10,000. So be a part of it. Hit the subscribe button, help us get us there. It's a ambitious goal. I mean, we still have over just under 6,000 to go. Just hit the button, turn the notification bell, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Everything's at Two Plane Sports. And if you don't want to look at us, and if you're driving to the game, you're planning to drive to the game and you want to listen to the spring game preview, go find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And so when you're driving to the game, you can kind of get some background noise and some knowledge, or maybe disagree with us. But overall, I just want to say we've given away all of our tickets as well. So I hope that everyone that won tickets enjoys the game, and we just wanted to do that and give that back to you guys, and we're hoping to do more of that as we continue into this fall. So continue to come back and keep watching, and we hope to see you guys at O'Connell's. Brandon and I are going to be there. I don't know. We're going to be, 11:30, somewhere in there, probably showing up around that time. So if you guys are there and you want to stop by, we're going to be there, probably having a few beers or something, just hanging out before the spring game. And we'd be happy to talk to you guys and see how you're doing. So, but Brandon, I want to get your initial takeaway. What do you think about the roster split that just came out today? Do you have any big takeaways? Anyone that you're really, really excited for? What do you think?
It's interesting. We were talking about it, before we started. Like, you look at the DBs where the red team it's the red team, right? That just has Key Lawrence. I say just Key Lawrence. They obviously are filled with more defensive backs, but that's the most interesting position, I think. I mean, you got Key Lawrence, who's going to be a starter on the red team, and then you got the white team is loaded with potential starters with DJ Graham, Woody Washington, Billy Bowman. They have Justin Broyles. They have Kenny Walker. They have most of the guys that we believe who are going to start in the secondary. Whereas the red team only has Key Lawrence, who we believe to be a starter. I think they did a really good job splitting the receivers. Just another random takeaway with Marvin Mims, Theo Weiss on red, and then white has Drake Stoops, Jaden Gibson, Jalil Farouk, a couple other guys that are probably going to be big-time players. You mentioned it before we started recording. The running back disparities is pretty interesting too, with one team having Eric Gray and Marcus Major, who are probably going to be workload guys, and then the other team just has Javonte Barnes. I said just Javonte Barnes. There's also Weatherman Jay and Todd Hudson, but realistically, out of those three, Javonte Barnes is the guy that you think is going to play the most. And as you mentioned before we start recording, Brown, it's a good point. Maybe the team sees a big role for Javonte Barnes, and they're putting him on that team where he's probably the most talented guy, and he'll get the most carries. So I don't know. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see how it all plays out tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time and a lot of interesting decisions overall in the separation. I think it's interesting that Dylan Gabriel is going to be the quarterback for both teams. Who knows how long it's going to be that he's going to be on the field for both sides, but the fact that is what or how they're managing this quarterback, I guess it's always a conversation on who's going to be the starter, who's actually the best one. They're pretty much putting that aside, not really letting it be a conversation, because if we think back to, it feels like the last 5-6 years, almost every time we go into the spring game and the backup, everyone's like, oh, the backup is so much better. I remember whenever Kyler and Baker during the spring game, everyone was talking about how Kyler was so much better and how he should be the starter after the spring game. Obviously, that didn't happen. Baker continued on. Kyler and was it Spencer? It was Kyler and
No.
Chandler Morris.
Yeah, that Yeah, Kyler and Chandler Morris. Yeah, they were there at the same time.
Kyler
Yeah.
Murray was in a battle with Austin Kendall. No, Lincoln Riley.
That-
Austin Kendall. That's what it was.
was.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Battle.
And I remember that it was people were coming out of that spring game because in the first part of the spring game, Kyler did have a bit of a rough outing, and Austin Kendall was doing pretty good. And again, people, at least on campus, were thinking maybe Austin Kendall's the guy. Clearly, that was not the case, and Kyler Murray went on to win the Heisman. Then it was, and so on and so on. It always seems like the backup somehow one-ups the starter during the spring game. That's not going to happen this year. Dylan's going to get to just pretty much take as many reps as he needs throughout the entire game. I probably would expect him to play a half, and then we'll go on to see Nick Evers and Micah Bowens, and then maybe Ralph Rucker and Ben Harris. But I do agree with you guys on Javonte Barnes. He probably is doing really well during practice, and they want to see him as the lead back and not as the change of pace guy, and really see, can you be a main contributor in this running game going into next season? Because Brum, I believe, mentioned Marcus Major may not be playing because of an injury. So that means it's his time to shine. I mean, it sounds awful, but when someone ahead of you goes down, it's your opportunity to take their spot. And if he can, have a good performance, and you have to be stellar or just out of this world. It has to be good. You look consistent, look like you know what you're doing and finding the holes, going, making sure that you're following your blocks. That's all you got to do. I don't think you have to do anything spectacular to take over the number one spot. Just go for role number 2 and then aim for a great spot. If you can take that huge jump, do it. But right now you just got to take over Marcus Major's spot, which right now is the opportunity to do so.
Hold on. Yeah. The one thing about Austin Kendall in the spring game, he did smoke a cheerleader in the face on the sideline.
He did do that. I remember.
That wasn't a great pass.
Yeah, that was not a great pass. Yeah, and Jose, you bring up a good point. Last spring game, I remember people walking away from the game being like, man, Caleb Williams needs to start. And funny how that worked out, and he eventually did. But so a couple of things. Starting with Dylan Gabriel and starting for both teams, I think this is showing how much of a drop-off it is from Gabriel to the other quarterbacks. Nick Evers, I feel like, is just because he's been on campus for a few months and he's a true freshman, and you're just way behind in general. I think this points to that OU is going to take a transfer quarterback after the spring game. Whoever enters into the transfer portal from a junior college, major, Power 5 school, I think OU's taking a transfer quarterback. Because God forbid, but if Dylan Gabriel gets hurt, it's a tremendous drop off. I think Nick Evers is going to be really good. It's just I don't know how ready he is. And with him not being the starter of one team, I feel like they think the same. And that's no slide against him. I mean, it's hard to come in as a true freshman. Caleb Williams didn't even start day one. He could have, but I feel like Caleb Williams is a little bit of a special case. Not many kids can do what he was able to do. So I would expect them to take a transfer quarterback. Second point, Brandon, I think Marcus Major, he's not going to play. Eric Gray is going to definitely play, but I think a running back that we're going to see, obviously with Javonte Barnes, I think Tawee Walker is going to play a lot, and I think he's going to look really good too, because he is the Marcus Major that's available. He's kind of a bowling ball, if you could say that. He's like 5'10", 220 pounds, I think, or something like that. And he's just kind of your power back. I feel like Walker is going to get a lot of carries. They're going to give a ton to Gray too. But I think you're going to see a Javonte Barnes, Tawee Walker kind of dueling back and forth for the white and red team. And the last point about the defensive backs, I think why they put Key Lawrence on the other team is because they know he's a clear starter at one of the safety spots. And I think they put Morrison, Broyles, and Bowman all on the same team to see how they play together. Who's going to play 2 out of those 3 spots, because Key Lawrence is going to have to come back. I think they're going to try to give as many looks and build up confidence for Billy Bowman. After getting thrown to the wolves last year, I feel like this is kind of also a confidence move that they're going to put all the great or good players around him for the most part, and that he just needs to worry about himself and his task. So I feel like they're going to see who's going to excel out of those three, and that's who's going to pair up with Lawrence, and then who's going to take the nickel spot. I don't know. I might be reading into it too much, but I feel like Key Lawrence is by far and away, for sure, number one safety.
Or
I don't know.
The other perspective is maybe Key Lawrence is underwhelming this coaching staff at the safety position, because they have mentioned, Venables mentioned that Billy Bowman will be stepping into the safety role for this fall. So maybe it's Trey and Billy that are impressing as safety starters for the moment. Because if you look at them, right, Billy is very athletic. He's a big dude, but his pass coverage skills are I would say, are a little better than Trey Morrison. And as I've said, since Trey Morrison has transferred, that dude is just going to absolutely blast the receiver. And I would be a lot more comfortable with him coming down. And even though he's small, guarding maybe the tight end or the slot receiver in a situation like that, than Billy Bowman, who maybe is a little bit longer, but has the speed to go up and down the field when it does come to protecting against the deep pass. So that could be another reason. I don't think that you're completely off by saying it is just maybe who's going to fit the role better. But with Billy being moved to a safety position, I think that maybe Key is potentially underwhelming at the moment, and they just need to see him impress against the what is it? What team is he on? The white team? No, he's on the red team, right?
Yeah.
So they need to impress against the red team receivers, who are pretty big. If you look at the size comparisons, Nick Anderson is 6'1", 6'2". Theo Weiss is huge. And if you look at White, they have two small guys, and Jalil and Drake, smaller guys.
Who's 6'5", but he's
but one huge guy compared to two or three on the other side.
Yeah. And I will also say, Lawrence is getting paired up with Justin Harrington. That can be a dynamic duo as well. That adds a lot of length, because Harrington's 6'2", Lawrence is 6 foot 6'1". So there's some length back there, and it'll be interesting to see how they play together. I'm assuming that Harrington will be the starter. I don't know exactly, but I feel like that could be a little bit of a preview as well, and seeing how that pairing goes. I don't know. Harrington, I feel like I have a lot of excitement for. I feel like the excitement is back that we had 2 years ago, and I feel like he could be a big time contributor for the Sooners this year.
Another interesting group is the linebackers on red team. They have Stutzman, Kanik, and Kobe, three guys that we predicted could take a lot of playing time in this coming fall. Deshaun White is on white. So, and if you look at their linebackers, it's Deshaun, Joseph Wette, Jake McCoy is on that squad, and David Owegbu. I'm not super high on David Owegbu as a pass coverage linebacker. I think he does a lot better at coming in and protecting against the run, and sometimes pass rushing. So I think that personally I would give the edge to red team for the linebackers, because they have a lot more versatility in what that group can do compared to white.
I was just about to bring up the linebacker group, because it is fun, and I think the cool part about it is the red team has the three freshmen that we talk about all the time, and I really hope we get to see, and I'm sure we will, but to see them all in the field at the same time. I think it'll be fun to see Kanik, Kobe McKenzie, and Kip Lewis all out there at the same time, and granted it's a spring game, so you never know how hard either side's going to be playing. But I mean, at the end of the day, the most important thing for this game is no one gets hurt. So with that being the most important thing, and everybody on the field knows that, injuries being, let's just make sure that doesn't happen, that in itself automatically makes the competition a little bit less. It's obviously not going to be as competitive as a regular game, but like, you just wonder how competitive that they really are going to be. Like, that's what we're talking about, all the stuff that we're excited to see. I am excited to see it, but like, at the end of the day, like I guess what I'm asking you guys is how much can you really take away from a spring game performance if someone kills it when you know both sides really at the end of the day don't care. It's like in preseason football in the NFL. If someone goes to offer 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, nobody really cares.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this year, I do agree. Overall, you can't. This is not the exact same thing as a game in September or October, but I feel like this year, 90% of these positions are having open tryouts with the new coaching staff saying, "Hey, you know, just because you started last year for the old staff doesn't mean you're going to start for us." And I feel like maybe some kids hear that and see it as an opportunity for them to either maintain their spot or jump someone, because everyone in theory has a clean slate with the new staff here. No one has any preconceived notions or thoughts. I feel like you're going to see some kids that are younger or who have been here a long time that try to take that next step and show high energy, high effort. And I feel like that's what Venables coaches anyway. And this whole staff is high energy, high effort. So will it be the same as a game? No, but I feel like this year it could be a little bit more than maybe what a regular spring game would be. I don't know.
I hope we see a little bit extra physicality, especially on the outside, just because I don't know. I just want to see something out of the defensive back room, especially from the white team, because they do have the more experienced corners in DJ Woody and Kanai. I believe those three could be the starting group as well. I'm not like super high on DJ, and I've said it multiple times. I think his spot is the one that's up for grabs from last year's starting lineup. But I mean, if you show that you picked something up during these last 3 or 4 months during off-season workouts and practice, then you can even, I guess, solidify your spot and start changing the narrative on who he has been as a corner guy that makes big plays, but also gives up big plays. So I think that he needs to balance that out and stop watching Trayvon Diggs tape and go watch Xavier Howard or Jalen Ramsey or anyone else that's not Trayvon Diggs.
Another question for you guys. This is just stuff I'm thinking about as we're going through this. I don't know. I guess I'm just asking questions this podcast. It's going to look like almost like I'm interviewing you guys on this one, but I like it. 3 things. If you could pick 3 things that you wanted or that you're most excited to see tomorrow, what's it going to be? And like for me, like it's going to be Dylan Gabriel, obviously, and I think that's going to be a lot of us are just excited because he's the new quarterback. He's the new shiny toy we have. We all want to see him play and perform well. So I'm going to pick Dylan Gabriel. I want to see Theo Weiss, what he looks like coming back from, missing a year with injury and stuff, and the 3 freshman linebacker that we talk about all the time. I can't wait to see those 3. So for me, that's like the 3 things that I'm most excited about, and probably in that order. I put it if we're doing order wise, I'd probably go Dylan Gabriel linebackers. Then.
Want to go, bro? You want to go ahead? Okay. So my 3, I'm not going to say Dylan Gabriel. I think that's kind of a given, like you said, and you already took it anyway. My number 1, I'm really excited to see. Probably is going to be Kanai Walker. I really think he's got a lot of potential. See what Walker can do. 2, I'm going to say is going to be Javonte Barnes, and see how he really performs. And I want to see how the offensive line is doing overall. Because I feel like with the old staff and the old coaching or strength and conditioning coaches, they were getting pushed around a little bit. And I feel like with Schmitty being there now for, I don't know, close to 6 months, I feel like we're going to see a difference with this offensive line. And the white team is a little bit heavy as far as projected starters. I think you're going to see some dominance from the offensive line. I kind of want to see what Wanya Morris looks like as well. I hope he's taken the next step. And I guess really the defensive line as well. I kind of gave you 4, but really it's along those trenches. I really think we're going to see a difference in the play.
So what if we say Kanai Walker, the trenches, instead of offensive and defensive line?
Yeah.
We'll
There you
just
go.
combine it into one, Daddy. But I do like that. I like that a lot. I think the offensive line specifically is what I was excited about. But Jose, what do you got?
The defensive ends, the pass rushers, because they've split it in how when we discuss the position group breakdown of the defensive line. The pass rusher group specifically, white team has Reggie Grimes and Clayton Smith, and red team has Marcus Stripling and Ethan Downs. So the 4 guys that we believed were going to be in position to win those starting spots are split up 2 and 2. So I think that they're pretty much saying these are pairs that we could see play together. Who's going to impress the most during this game? Because it's not like it's a freaking Pro Bowl where the offensive line just going to stand up and point at the defensive lineman that they're supposed to be guarding. They're actually going to, hit each other a little bit. So impress. The defensive backs, I guess, specifically DJ Graham, and maybe it's because I have been kind of low on him, but I mean, the dude still makes big plays. It's just the big plays that he gives up. I hope that having a real corner coach has fixed some of those technical issues so he can flip his hips a little bit faster, get out of breaks, and not look like he was nailed down by the feet to the field and people are just walking by him sometimes. So that's number 2. Number 3, if I have to pick a specific player, I'm going to go with Jalil Farouk, just because he had such a good bowl game that I wonder how it's going to translate in this offense, because even though, yes, his receivers coach is the same, the offense as a whole is a little different. Is he going to play outside? Is he going to play inside? Is he going to be a new favorite target for Dylan Gabriel? Because now we've all seen what Marvin Mims can do, and I don't expect a drop off there. But even during that freshman year with him and Spencer, he was a big red zone guy, that he led. I'm pretty sure he led the country in receiving touchdowns that year. Last year, the ball spread a lot. So we need to see who's going to be the number 1, Jalil or Marvin. And I think Jalil has the opportunity to take over the number 1 spot because it is a fresh start at the quarterback position.
I like that. And then going through, just listen to Jose's answers. You boys got time for one more?
Oh, yeah.
Trying to get out of here, but I guess so.
Keep firing.
One more question that popped up, and it's all right. So it's sort of a 2-parter. So 1A, I guess, and this came to my head, and I have my answers too as I ask it. But when you started talking about DJ Graham, my first question that I thought of is, who do you guys think individually? You have to pick one player for this. Who has the most to gain/lose? Like, if they have a hell of a spring game and they're actually competing hard, this guy, may have just solidified a spot in the lineup, if not as a starter, as a guy who's going to play a lot of time. Part 2 of the question is going to be, what position group, I guess, who has to have a good game among the position groups? And it'll make sense when I answer my part for the second one. So, for the first one, about which player has the most to gain/lose, I think it's Billy Bowman. The guy had a hell of a start to the season last year, fell off. Granted, he was thrown into some different positions. It was a freshman year. A lot of stuff happened, but I think he has a lot to lose or gain in this game. I think him having a good showing is going to be very important. So I'm going to go Billy Bowman as my guy who has the most to win/lose. And then position group, I'm going to pick that defensive line. And I thought of it because you started talking about Jalil Farouk and the receivers. Because, we're going to find out who's number 1, who's number 2, who's 3, who's 4. I think the defensive line, everybody on that defensive line, if your name is not Ethan Downs, essentially, or Jalen Redmond, you are playing for a starting spot, essentially. You're playing for a spot right next to Jalen Redmond, and you're playing for a spot opposite Ethan Downs, essentially. So I'm going to go with the defensive line. Everybody on the line has to have a good game because I think they're all playing for a starting spot. And Billy Bowman is a guy with the most to lose / gain.
Yeah. For the one player that I guess he doesn't have a ton to lose, but I think he has a ton to gain is Jaden Davis. No one's talking about Jaden Davis. He started, he played quite a bit for OU, when he was a freshman and sophomore. He's been kind of put back on the back burner. He just wasn't playing well down the stretch, especially with the last staff. I feel like if he comes out with a good showing and maybe a few people struggle in front of him, he's going to be placed firmly into, this rotation. And I believe he was very high on Clemson coming out of high school. So with this staff coming over, I'm not saying it's the exact same staff, he might see an opportunity as a fresh start for him. The position group, I'm going to say it again. We already talked about it a little bit, but I think it's that offensive line. I think the offensive line is important because we also talked about how the depth at quarterback is so limited. You have to keep Gabriel upright and protect him at all costs. And if you start getting beat like a drum, it's tough in a spring game. You're like, oh man, I want to see this defensive line tear up the offensive line and make them look good. But then on the other side, you're like, wait a minute, no, I don't want the offensive line to look bad. I think you're going to see the offensive line look a lot better. They're going to be a lot stronger. And I think they know that they're going to have to protect Gabriel because there's no one really behind him. Even if you get a transfer quarterback, it's not going to be the same as like a sophomore or junior who's been with you for 2 or 3 years. So those are my picks.
So my player is Caden Helms. I think he's got the most to gain out of the players I can think of because Brayden Willis is the only returning tight end, right? And being that this offense is actually focused on running the ball, Caden has a lot to gain in both the pass coverage and just overall snaps. Or not pass coverage, sorry, passing game and overall snaps. Can he block? I think that's going to be a big question for a freshman. Have you been able to put on the strength, and can you block properly for long enough just to keep a hole open for the running back, or chip someone, enough so that the tackle can recover from having to backpedal so hard to get to the guy and make sure to keep Dylan Gabriel upright. I think those are the little things that Caden's got to prove as a freshman, because I think his pass catching game is spoken for it. Like, the dude is super talented at the high school level. He essentially played just an enormous wide receiver at high school, played outside and inside. So are you strong enough, and have you built that foundation to block? For Caden Helms, I think he's got the most to gain. Maybe not lose that much because he is a freshman, and Daniel Parker was brought in to be more of a blocking tight end. So maybe not much to lose, but I think he's got the world to gain, potentially even take over some starting snaps from Brayden Willis. And then as a position group, I'm going to pick the linebackers, just to be a little different from you guys, because I think you guys are right. But with how they're mixed up, I want to see how each player is put into their position. Because like I said earlier, I think the red team has a lot more versatility in regards to what the linebackers can do, because Danny Stutzman is just a tremendous athlete. That sideline to sideline. Kanik is a freak sideline to sideline guy. And then Kip Lewis, whenever we talked about him and his Houdat, the guy is really good at pass coverage, but probably needs to improve a little bit on reading holes on the line to come in and protect against the run. And then on the other side, Kobe McKenzie's really good at being smart and looking for those holes and making sure the running back doesn't get past them. But has he improved his overall pass coverage skills? Is he fast enough, when the ball looks like it's coming out of the quarterback's hands, to react and get to the player? Because I think not that he needs to have taken that step already, but if he hasn't, we're going to see him potentially redshirt, because we still have Deshaun White on the other side, who is a more experienced linebacker. I think for him, it's going to be, can he lead a group of not as experienced players for the white team? Because if we look at the linebackers on white team, it's him, and like I said, like 2 or 3 other guys that aren't as experienced on the field. So can you lead a group of inexperienced guys for Deshaun White? I think that's his challenge. And for red team linebackers, have you been able to improve the spots where you're a little weaker at? And I think, like I said, Deshaun or not Deshaun. Kanik and Stutzman are freak athletes that can go sideline to sideline, but they just have to solidify their spots as potential starters.
Yeah. Then I got a quick question for you guys now. I'm going to turn this back on you guys. It's quick. So who's the biggest contributor on the offense that you see, like having a breakout game? Biggest contributor on defense, breakout game type deal, and who wins? I'll go through offense. I think Tayu Walker is going to have a huge game. Maybe a little different, but I really think Walker's going to get a lot of looks. Defensive line, along the defensive line, I think Jeffrey Johnson, the transfer from Tulane, is going to be dominant. I think he knows he's a graduate senior, coming in for one more year. He wants to start next to Jalen Redmond. I think you're going to see Jeffrey Johnson play extremely well, and he caused a lot of problems when OU played Tulane last year. Not saying it's going to happen again, but I feel like Johnson will be really good, and I think the white team wins. So, Jose?
So I'm going to go on offense, Javonte Barnes. I think this is his opportunity to take over Marcus Major's spot, especially if Marcus isn't playing, to be seen as the lead back, especially after Eric Gray leaves Oklahoma. It'll be potentially his role to take, and depending on how the offense looks and how that room looks, he could be a bell cow back for Oklahoma. So him for offense. On defense, that's a little tougher. I'm going to pick Reggie Grimes just because I love that kid, and I hope that he is able to take the spot opposite to Ethan Downs as a pass rusher coming off the edge. And then who wins? I'm going to go with the white team as well because of just how stacked they are at the defensive back position. I think they're going to make it hard on Dylan.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I'm also going to pick the white team to win the contest if there is a winner in this.
Oklahoma wins no matter what.
Exactly. As long as no one gets hurt, we win. Offensively, I'm going to go Jaden Gibson. He's another guy that if I had 4 or 5 in that first question I asked you guys about 3 things I'm most excited about, Gibson would have been 4 or 5. I think that kid has so much potential. He's going to be – I think he's going to be freaky out throughout his OU career, and I think we're going to see a glimpse of that tomorrow. So Jaden Gibson is who I'm going to pick offensively. And then defensively, we've talked about him a bunch, but he leaves no doubt after tomorrow's spring game, solidifies a starting spot as a freshman, the lone freshman starter. It's Jaren Kanik. As Jose mentioned, sideline to sideline speed, freaky athleticism. He tomorrow leaves no doubt that he's a starter.
You're muted.
Oh,
You're muted,
sorry.
pal.
Sorry. Yeah, it's like, hey, that I could see Kanik exploding onto the field and being so good that they can't keep him off the field. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all I've got. Brandon, I feel like you've got 75 things that you can make your individual challenge with, but what are you going to do?
It's like the easiest thing ever. So obviously Brumbaugh and I will be heading to O'Connell's tomorrow about noontime is what we talked about before we start recording. 11:45 noon, we will be there at O'Connell's. Simply, if you are coming to O'Connell's, comment that tomorrow. We're excited to see you guys. We're excited to hang out, drink a couple cold beers, maybe a shot or 2 or 3. We'll see where the road takes us. If you are planning at being at O'Connell's tomorrow, or lunch before the game to hang out and meet up, just comment that.
All right. Yeah, that's good. So I feel like this was a pretty good video. A lot of discussion. I feel like we could have gone on for an hour plus, but we don't want to keep you guys that long. We'd probably bore you to death. So if you've made it this far, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. Again, already follow us on our social medias. It's all linked down in the description below. And follow us on Apple and Spotify. And we will catch you on Monday for a post-spring game recap / visitors that came. I feel like next week we're going to have a lot to talk about. Catch you next time.